Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with the second video of the 2017 US Chess Championships, and this is a very special one. One of the best games ever was played in the 9th round. This position occurred in the 1963 US Championships on the 18th of December. White was Robert Byrne, black was Bobby Fischer. This is the position after 15 Queen D2 to C2 from Byrne, and Bobby Fischer sacrificed his knight here with knight takes F2 and won a beautiful game. One of the classics. Fast forward 54 years, the 7th of April 2017, White Jeffery Xiong, the under 20 current world champion, and black Wesley So, ranked number 2 in the world. Let's look at their game. Xiong opened d4, knight f6 from So, c4, e6 and g3, an invitation to the Catalan which So accepts. He played d5 and now we're in the Catalan variation of the Queen's Gambit. Bishop g2, bishop e7, knight f3, black castled kingside, white castled kingside, and d takes c4. Queen c2 and a6. Here one of the main variations is queen takes c4, winning back the pawn, but then So would have played b5, queen back to c2, and bishop b7, and black has neutralized the giant Catalan bishop on g2. It's the main variation though. But one other variation is to, instead of taking on c4, is to play a4, and that is what Xiong played. Bishop d7, and again Xiong could have taken on c4 here, but he chose for rook d1, also still a theoretical line. Bishop c6 from Wesley So, and knight c3. For the moment, white is not bothered about winning the c4 pawn back and goes for development. Here So played an odd looking move. At first sight, bishop takes f3. Why would you give up the bishop like that? Well, it is the best move in the position, because if you would play, for example, knight bd7, developing your knight, then there is e4 from white, threatening d5, and the bishop on c6 is in trouble. So bishop takes f3 is the correct move, bishop takes back, and knight c6. Here Xiong played an odd looking move, giving up that Catalan bishop, bishop takes c6, but again this is the best way to play if you, for example, play e3 to defend the d4 pawn. Then there is a very strong move, knight a5. It protects b7 and it stops white to develop his queenside, and also stops the e4 move because of knight b3 with a fork. So Xiong played bishop takes c6 and b takes c6, and now black has tripled pawns. They don't look very good. But the position is about equal. Again, we're still in theory. Bishop g5, rook b8, e3, c5, d takes c5, and queen e8. Black has now returned his extra pawn, and what did he get in return for that? Well, the c5 pawn is weak, the queen can go to c6, and he also has pressure against b2. Still an equal position. Rook d4 from Xiong, with a threat to take on c4, and now knight d7. This is a new move with the idea knight e5, and then from e5 black can jump into white's weaknesses on d3 and f3. The bishops were swapped, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and here Xiong played c5, c6. And Wesley So said later that here he already saw the idea that he will play in the game later. Instead of c6, Jeffery Xiong could have taken on c4, but then there is knight e5, and you cannot go with your rook back to d4 because of knight f3 check with a fork. So you have to go to f4 or e4, which are not natural squares for the rook. And then after queen takes c5, black has all the fun. His pieces are much stronger than white's, and especially that rook on e4 is misplaced. So Jeffery Xiong decided not to take on c4 but played c6 and knight e5 from So as planned. Queen e4, covering the f3 square and protecting the c6 pawn. Queen c5. We've played 19 moves and now the magic starts. Knight e5 from Jeffery Xiong is a nice move. And if you would take that knight, then there is queen takes e5, queen takes c6, and rook takes d5, and white is better. So taking a knight is not the right option, and Wesley So played knight d3, jumping with that knight into white's position. Here, knight f4 might have been the more cautious move, but then black can win a pawn, can win the b2 pawn, either taking with the knight or with the rook, with a good position for black. So Jeffery Xiong gambled and took on c7. And here the memories of Robert Byrne versus Bobby Fischer from the US Championships of 1963 are being relived, because here Wesley So, straight after Xiong had taken on c7, played the Fischer move, knight takes f2. That piece has to be taken, and rook takes b2 check. And now king f1 as played by Xiong is the only move. If you go to g1, because you want to protect the h2 pawn, then there is queen h5, and you're going to be checkmated. For example, h4 doesn't help because of queen e2, and you will get checkmated. And also the very odd looking move queen h1 to protect h2 doesn't work because of, again, queen e2. You also cannot go to f3 with the king after rook takes b2, because then there is queen h5 check, and after queen g4 there is queen takes h2. So king f1 is the only move as played by Jeffery Xiong. Queen h5, queen g4, queen takes h2, and a miracle defense, queen f3. And the commentators were saying, how can this not be mate? But it isn't mate. The white queen covers critical squares, so black is not winning yet. It covers all the mating squares, h1, g2, f2, e2. But black is not out of resources yet. And here So played c3. Black of course has to keep attacking as he is a piece down. Rook c1 was played by white, and another beautiful move, e6 to e5, to deflect the rook from the d-file. You cannot stay on the d-file. For example, rook d7 does not work because of e4, and that white queen that was protecting all those critical squares cannot keep protecting them. The queen will have to move, and then it's checkmate. So Xiong played rook h4, but now queen d2 is possible because the rook is no longer covering the d2 square. Rook d1 was played, and now another wonderful move, another wonderful shot. Rook d8, bringing the last piece to join the party. A queen sacrifice, which cannot be taken, because if you take on d2, then it is rook d takes d2, and black is winning. King g1 is the only move to avoid an immediate mate. Rook b1 check, queen f1 only move, and then c2. So the queen sacrifice cannot be taken. Xiong came up with knight d5. That piece was taken by the rook. And you cannot take back, of course, because of queen f2 checkmate. So Xiong came up with rook d4. But that rook was also taken. And the c6 pawn is in the way of white being able to save himself with queen a8. E takes d4, and the last miracle move, queen takes d1 check from Wesley So. A queen sacrifice after all, and now white has no option but to take it. Here Jeffery Xiong resigned. The game could have concluded as follows: you have to take the queen, and then there is the winning move c2. And a few moves ago that c6 pawn, white c6 pawn, was in the way of white being able to play queen a8. And now his own d pawn is in the way of him being able to play queen d8 mate. This is winning for black. Just want to show you one variation. If the queen goes to c1, then there is rook b1, and you can play c7, but it doesn't work. Rook takes c1 is check, so king e2, and then you sacrifice your rook, rook e1 check, king has to take, and c1 queen check is the winning move because it covers the c8 square. What a wonderful game, which will go down in history as one of the best games ever played. Wesley So said after the game, knight takes f2 was about 85% calculation and 15% intuition. I had seen the idea already after white played c5, c6. I thought I wasn't risking much sacrificing the knight. I have many checks. I wasn't sure if it was winning. I was calculating to make sure I didn't miss anything. With the computer, the combination is easy to find. By calculating with one's own head, it's really difficult. Hope you agree with me that we witnessed something very special in this game. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments about this incredible game. You also may want to check out my Chess to Progress channel, the link is in the description box. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you very much for watching.